A LaSalle County man has been restoring gravestones for over 10 years. It was something he thought he would never do.
Sam Matheny takes us to a small town near Streeter with his discoveries.
Back in 2011, John Kettman of LaSalle went searching for his ancestor in a cemetery.
I have a third great grandmother, step grandmother, that is buried here, and then that's what we were originally searching for.
He stumbled upon the Narramore Cemetery in the small town of Kangley, but it was forgotten and neglected, so John began digging and found her headstone.
So here is Jacob Huntsman and Catherine Wyrick.
And what happened next was something John could have never imagined.
You can see the tooling here. Look at that.
John received a permit from the state of Illinois to unearth and restore these headstones, giving the cemetery a whole new life. So far, John has dug up more than 80 headstones, and there's still more to be found.
There's a stone underneath it. Most likely, this thing stood like 3 feet high, and there's a base underneath it. It's one of those things we haven't gotten to yet.
A nonprofit funds all the materials needed to dig and research, and after they trace the name on the headstone, they reunite the family.
Every single headstone that we find is a story. It's just a part of history that we can restore.
I wouldn't want to be somewhere, and be forgotten. I mean, that's going to happen eventually, but, if somebody's willing to step up and, make sure you're not forgotten, that's preservation to me.
John says someday he wants to bring in local scouts and teach them more about genealogy.
Once people in the area realized, hey, there's something out there, something new, people get excited. Oh, wow, I never knew about that place. Neither did I.
In Kangley, Sam Matheny, 25 News.